Hello, MCU fans. Now that the Secret Invasion series has come to a conclusion, it's time to take a last look at where it falls in the MCU timeline. There have been a lot of debates, in particular, on whether it's 2025 or 2026, but I do believe, at least I hope, that I will be able to convince you it's 2026 by the end of this video. Now, there will be some mild spoilers for the series, so it's probably best that you've watched all the episodes first. So, with that in mind, let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Okay. So I want to first recap some of the very cool flashbacks that we got, because they gave us a lot of backstory on Nick Fury. The first one went back to 1997, where we met his wife-to-be, Vara, and of course Gravik, who would end up being the main villain for the series. We learned that Gravik was an orphan as a result of the Kree-Skrull War, and basically that he lost his parents in the last stand against the Kree. We also learned that Fury cut a deal with the Skrulls, telling them, hey, if you'll put on a new face and you'll keep it, then while you work to keep my home safe, Carol Danvers and I will help you find a new one. And also, we learned later in the episodes that if not for this deal, at least Talos feels, Fury did not start ascending the ranks in S.H.I.E.L.D. until me and 19 of my people signed on to your invisible spy network. Again, giving us the idea it was 20 Skrulls that were helping him. And he said basically every time you were promoted inside S.H.I.E.L.D., we did that. So it'll be interesting to rewatch the MCU and see, how we think about everything Fury does, knowing he's got these Skrulls helping him. So that's 1997. We then moved to 1998. In that, we learn that basically the relationship between Fury and the Skrulls are going to be off the books, because Fury's trying to tell Vara, hey, we can't get together because Commander of Station and operatives cannot be, and she cuts him off and says, our unit doesn't exist. That means I don't work for you. So basically we learned that no one, theoretically, knew about these Skrulls. That's why the information wasn't dumped to the world in The Winter Soldier when all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secrets were shared. That's why theoretically no one but Fury knew about these Skrulls. And we in fact see Vara giving Fury some very important information, in this case about Dreykov, but probably that's the things they were doing all along the way. We also get the impression from the finale that it might have been around this time, 1998, when Fury realized, hey, I'm not going to be able to find a planet. He didn't tell him that, but notice Fury, and it's really Gaia, but presumably speaking for Fury, says, I knew within a few years of searching, there was no other planet out there for you. So man, it was probably 1998, 1999 that he'd already given up and didn't tell them for years. Ouch. Then this isn't so much a flashback, but it's worth noting from a chronology standpoint that in 2011, 15 years prior to the series itself, that's when Vara found the home that they ended up living together, Fury and Vara. Also, assuming Rhodey isn't lying, or Rava, as the case may be, isn't lying, then it was also 15 years ago when Rhodey learned about the Skrulls, when he was part of an eyes-only top-secret presentation. So that would have been 2011. And then we got our final flashback, number 3, to 2012. This was right after the Avengers movie, and we learned that the Skrulls did not know about the Avengers. So it's very interesting. No one knew about Fury's Skrulls. He kept that a secret, but he even kept the Avengers a secret from his team. So lots of secrets. Typical Fury, right? Because Vara says, as I was watching the news coverage of those guys, the heroics in the States, strangest thing, I kept having this feeling that someone I know had something to do with getting them all together. Love this CGI, by the way, the de-aging CGI. They did great. The money was very well spent. And then, of course, we learn of their poem that's so important throughout the entire series, called The Late Fragment, and in particular the line of, to call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. So that was all 2012. Then, not much more we learned for a while, but really important, in 2023, right after Endgame, that's when we learn that Fury sent the harvest, sent the Skrulls out to collect the harvest, because every Avenger spilled blood in the Battle of Earth, even Carol Danvers, and in the aftermath, some were sent out to collect the DNA. So that's really important. We learned that Fury collected the harvest. And as I've mentioned in the other video, that's why I do not think that any of the Skrulls were impersonating people at this point, because why would Gravik have turned it over? Why not keep a copy of the DNA? So I really think, even though they hinted heavily that Rhodey became a Skrull way back in Civil War, I don't think so. I think that it was after Fury goes back up to the station that everything became a problem. And speaking of, that's the last chronology thing I'll mention, 2023. That's when Fury takes off to the space station where he stays. As Talos says, oh, it's too heavy here, man. I got to go up to my space station. And that really ticked him off. So I do think that is when they started impersonating people. But just my opinion, you can let me know what you think. But so, okay, there's just a summary of things. I think that's really interesting to look at the chronology. We learned so much about Vara and Fury's relationship and also, kind of some of Fury's shenanigans. So let's get to that question. When does it occur in the timeline? Well, in the very first episode, they told us it's present day. What does that mean, though, right? Well, they give us an interview on that. One of the VPs of production said, hey, it's present day in the MCU. That's what we're calling it. So it exists alongside the timeline that the shows come out in. So post She-Hulk, not sure why he picked that particular thing to mention, but anyway, post Blip, and right at this exact present day in the MCU. I think that's all I can say. Well, appreciate you saying that, but that wasn't helpful because we don't know what that means, right? But the Disney Plus timeline came out, and, I know not everybody agrees with it and doesn't believe it, etc. But if we do, for the minute, trust it, then wow, they really do mean present day. It's the last thing on the list. I did not see that coming. I honestly thought it would have been sometime in 2025, but not here. Absolutely not here. Okay, well, let's roll with this. For the minute, we're going to assume Disney Plus is right, and then we're going to analyze whether or not it's right to put it in 2026. But for now, let's assume it's right. Okay. Well, also, we know Guardians is coming out, right around the corner next week. Can't wait for it to show up. So this is my prediction. You can hold me to it. I'm saying it's going to be in between the holiday special and Quantumania on the Disney Plus timeline. We'll see. Because I think it's a spring of 2026. Okay, so where do we put Secret Invasion, and why did Disney Plus put it so late? Well, the show is clearly 30 years after the Captain Marvel movie, which is set in June of 1995. Because first of all, Prescott, Mr. Skrulls, says Carol Danvers and Nick Fury promised to find them a new planet, which, of course, we do learn that. They promised to do that. And he says it started 30 years ago when the Skrulls found Earth. So 30 years from Captain Marvel would put us at least in June of 1995. I'm sorry, June of 2025. So, okay, great, 30 years later. Then they repeat this 30 years multiple times. 30 years hand-on experience with the Skrulls, Fury says he has. People have been wandering in exile for 30 years. For 30 years, you still don't know me better than that, says Talos. Ugh, man, R.I.P. Talos, ugh. And we wandered in the shadows for 30 years because he, Fury, was weak. And then I love this. Fury says, I've been cleaning up your poop for at least 30-some years. Now notice, this is the first time it isn't a firm 30-some years. So first of all, 30 could mean 31, whoever says 31, right? We're just going to say 30. But in this case, he does say 30-some years. So that might imply 31, which could put us in 2026. All right, so that's enough of the 30, right? Then we have a lot of talk about how long Fury has been gone. Hill, R.I.P. Hill. Hill says, your lack of contact over the past few years. So what's a few? Well, few is at least 2, but many would argue 3 because a couple is 2. So could be 2 or 3. But, again, falling in that range of 30 to 31 years after Captain Marvel. Then this is interesting because Talos says, you've been up there for years. For years. Seems like you wouldn't say the phrase 4 years if you only meant 1 or 2. Just my opinion, but that feels longer than 2. Then Fury says that he's been away for years. Again, feels like more than 2. So, there you go. It's either 30 or 31. And then we know what month really clearly because it's set around Unity Day, which every year is on November 4th in Russia. And she says the attack is being planned for tomorrow, Unity Day. So that makes it pretty clear. We're talking late October, early November for the show, and either 2025 or 2026. And this is another example of why November fits because, look, we have the fall foliage, the trees have leaves on the ground that have turned. All really kind of fits with this November timeframe. Okay, so based on where Disney Plus placed it, it looks like October to November of 2026. However, you notice there was nowhere that they firmly said it was 2026 in the show itself. I personally think the 30-some years reference, the you've been up there 4 years, I think that's enough to move it to 2026. But you could argue, why is it not 2025? Okay, for the minute, let's say it was in October to November of 2025. Where would that place it? Well, it would place it between Werewolf by Night and Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. In fact, it would be right before the Guardians Holiday Special. It would be early November, and Guardians was, of course, Christmas time of December. Let's look at why that placement simply does not work. Remember, Ritson's speech in the final episode was a game changer for the MCU. He basically said he's going to pass a bill that designates all off-world born species as enemy combatants. Oh, and he doesn't stop there. He says, and we will kill every last one of you. So basically, after this point, after this speech, especially right after this speech, it would not be good to be an alien on the Earth. I have no idea what's going to happen in New Asgard. That's a different question. We'll have to see what's going to happen there. But the bottom line is an alien showing up randomly and walking around isn't going to be very well received. Well, that's what we got a lot of in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I don't think these people will be taking pictures with two very alien-looking beings. Now, they may have thought they were wearing costumes. I get that. But this is a month after Ritson's speech where he basically said, we're going to kill anyone that's an alien. Probably not a good time to walk around in an alien costume, first of all, right? I'm betting everybody stopped doing that. Why would you cosplay as someone that might get gunned down? So very, very unlikely people would be even walking around in costumes, let alone taking pictures with people who they think are in costume. But it doesn't stop there, right? Drax goes to the bar, remember, getting friendly with the patrons. They're going to know this isn't a costume. Mantis is singing and dancing with everybody. They're going to know this isn't a costume. Nobody's costume is that good. I would argue the cops. Remember, the cops were very patient with them. She even said, I don't know what's going on here, but you need to back up or I'll shoot. This is 1 month after an alien nearly killed the President of the United States. No, they would be shot on sight. They were threatening Kevin Bacon. They would be shot on sight. Period. End of story. This is New York. Also, would Kevin Bacon have been this friendly with aliens? I mean, he wasn't at first, right? He was scared. I get that. But then afterwards, he was very friendly with them. Now, Kevin Bacon's an awesome dude. That's not the point. I love Kevin Bacon. But still, this is right after the president made everyone at least get pretty nervous about aliens. I'm not saying every single person in the United States was going to kill every single alien they see, but it would make a very xenophobic state where people are very afraid and very cautious around anyone that's an alien. He seemed pretty fine overall. And then I would argue the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 ending credit, remember, the little newspaper article, alien abduction, Kevin Bacon shares all. That's a little positive for an article coming out soon after Ritson said, kill all aliens. I mean, the article would be written, but it would be more like, I don't know. It would just be pretty negative, I would think. So it seems really calm. But also, wouldn't Star-Lord be going nuts? I mean, imagine Star-Lord coming back to Earth and finding out Ritson issued a kill order on everyone on his team but him. So I would think he and his dad would be talking about that, not about whether or not the next door neighbor is having the son mow the lawn or not. So anyway, I guess my point is there's a reason Disney Plus, Marvel, placed this at the end. It changed the world. Certainly changed the United States, but I think it changed the world. And it would not fit in October to November of 2025. So let me know your opinion. If I didn't convince you, that's okay. I'm trying my best, but it's my opinion only. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But I really do think Disney Plus nailed it, and this is where it belongs. And that from this point forward, things are going to get pretty wacky. Now, it does raise an interesting question, though. What about the Marvels? Okay, so does the Marvels happen before or after the show? I think it goes without saying it happens after, but Sam Jackson went ahead and said it, right? He said this series has to happen so the Marvels can happen. All these things are connected in an interesting sort of way. Yeah, I'm going to trust Sam Jackson, right? Okay, then when does it happen? Well, if we're going to, again, trust the foliage, you never know. Sometimes it's just when the scene was filmed and they weren't thinking about the timeline. But let's assume they did this intentionally. That looks like spring, right? I mean, the tree's in bloom. Okay, well, if that's the case, then the Marvels movie is probably around April of 2027. It could be March. It could be May. The point is sometime in spring, right? Okay. But what does that mean for Miss Marvel? Because Miss Marvel had an end credit scene way back there on the far left, upper left there, back in September, that seemed to connect directly to the Marvels. Are we really saying there's a year and a half between the end credit, or between the main part of the finale of Miss Marvel and the end credit scene? Well, I mean, it could be, right? We know it was during the school year because her mom's calling up saying, that doesn't sound like science to me. Okay, so it's during the school year, but does it have to be the same school year? Not necessarily. I mean, it could be the next school year. As long as it's prior to June when school lets out in New Jersey, it could work. Now, you may be saying, I don't buy it though. Why would it jump a year? Well, I mean, she is in school, and the actress, Aman Vellani, is aging. And so to keep her stuck in a certain school year probably isn't the best idea. I mean, think about what they did with Peter Parker. Very realistic. The first time we saw him, he was in a freshman year when he got recruited to be in Civil War. The next time we saw him in Homecoming, it was his sophomore year. He was just starting his sophomore year. The next time we saw him in Infinity War, he was just about to finish his junior year. Remember, they were almost done, but because they got blipped, they had to redo their junior year. So when we see him in Far From Home the next time, he's in junior year number 2. But, again, he's advanced a year. He's just having to redo the junior year. And then finally, in No Way Home, when we see him, he's in his senior year, which, of course, the spell resets everything, and he's back to taking his GED. But my point is, Marvel wisely moved the timeline forward to be more realistic. So you didn't have Tom Holland still a sophomore or a freshman, for goodness sake. Instead, Peter Parker aged as it went along. Okay, if that's the case, then I could see them saying, hey, Aman Vellani aged a year, so why not have the MCU move forward a year? So for many reasons, I think this works. It's not as awkward as it at first seems. I admit, when I first saw where Disney Plus placed it, I was like, no way that's right. No way that's right. But the more you look at these facts and look at how the MCU has progressed, I think it makes sense. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think this is right? Do you think it's wrong? I'm always open to people's feelings about the timeline and about anything. So leave it in your comments. Let me know what you think. So as usual, I will include the full timeline image on my Google Drive on the website for the channel. And of course, here's basically phase 4 ending in 2025 and phase 5, which is now fully into 2026 and barreling into 2027, it seems. Craziness. Did not see that coming. Okay, as I always mention, we do have a Discord server. I'll leave a pinned comment so you can join if you'd like. And also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.